Good morning, this is Welker. This morning we're going to do my microgreen daily procedure. I do 3 main microgreens every day in addition to occasionally I do broccoli. But I do sunflower, peas, and wheat. For the sunflower, I start off with a little over 3/4 of a cup is what I use. And we'll get 1 cup of wheat. And we'll do 1 cup of peas. These are speckled peas, also called field peas. And when you're buying these, if you look for peas and sunflower as a cover crop rather than a microgreen seed, you can buy 50-pound bags of it for far cheaper than when you buy it as microgreen seed. Now we're going to soak these, and I just soak them in water, but with the sunflower they tend to float, so I'll put this cap on to prevent dry seeds floating. And so we do a violent spray like that to make sure they get well wetted. Just set that there. That's all we need to do for the wheat. So we'll let those soak for the day. It's morning now, and then later on this evening I will plant some trays. And the sunflower, if you happen to be around or you happen to think of it, after it's been soaking for 4 hours, you can dump the water out and just leave it in the bottle until you do your planting. What can happen is if you do that, the inner seed will soak up some of the water from the outer hull, and it will help the hull crack off while it's growing. Since I juice them, it's less important, but if you're eating them, it's always a challenge to get those black seed holes off the sunflower. Okay, it's later in the day. Let's plant some microgreen seeds. And we got the Caternix quail in the background. It's warming up outside. Eventually I'll get them outside. So I'm gonna go make some soil trays. Okay, here's my soil box. I've got trays with holes, trays with no holes. I keep this covered so the soil doesn't get too dried out. And I take my stick and just saw it back and forth to smooth things out. That's about good. And I'll put the tray with holes inside a tray with no holes. Time to add a little bit of soil. And I use this in the soil box to chop up the clumps. I also use this to scrape the roots off the bottom of the root trays once I'm done harvesting. And so this is kind of dry. I might water this down a little bit with the hose. If it's dusty, I add water. So I'm going to do 4 trays today. I'll be doing sunflower peas, wheat, and broccoli. So I've got 4 of them stacked up. I'm going to put 1 tray on top and pack it down. And that's ready to plant. Whatever I'm going to stack on the bottom of my stacks trays, I'll do that first. Now the sunflower seeds don't like being near the edge. The ones near the edge in the corners get dried out and they seem like they're stunted compared to the rest of them. So on the sunflowers, I try and keep the seeds out of the corners and a little bit away from the edge. One spread. Here is my stacking shelf. This is actually to prevent draft. I have fans going in here, so I have this plastic over it just to prevent air from drying out the seeds on the edges. That's ready to go out. So I'm going to throw this out under the light. And I'm going to let those sit for another day. These are sunflowers. I'll just let them sit for another day and put them out tomorrow. These are almost ready. When I uncover the peas, I let them sit here for a day first, just to green up just a little bit because it sort of shocks them to put them under the intense LED lights. All the other microgreens seem to do just fine if you stick them right under the light. Okay, now I'm going to water this down. It depends on how moist the soil was to begin with. It's fairly dry. And if you don't have a hose in your house like I do, you could just use a watering can, like what you use in your garden. These are field peas, also called speckled peas, and they've got to be the most trouble-free microgreen. They don't get moldy. They don't mind if you water them too much. If you don't water them enough, if you're going to start with one microgreen, start with field peas. It's hard to screw them up. But they do need weight on them during the sprouting process because the root needs to push down into the soil, and if there's no weight on it, it will just sprawl around on top of the soil and not be able to penetrate. So we'll stack that on the sunflower. Add water. So now we're going to do broccoli. Now broccoli I don't soak ahead of time. I just put the dry seeds right on the soil. And I'm going to go for about 30 grams of broccoli seeds. That's close enough. And the broccoli seeds, when they grow, they need a little bit of weight on them, but not much. Usually a couple empty trays is enough. And I'm going to smooth out just a couple areas that have clumps of seeds. So I'll put a couple empty trays and I'm just going to add a little pressure there. And so that is the seeding and stacking. If you haven't already, join us on the Telegram chat channel where a lot of our other users have some great pictures that they post. I'll show you some of those now.